Hello everybody and welcome to the Wild Ginger Running YouTube channel, live broadcast and podcast. Today we have the lovely, the fantastic Martin Elcoate from the Green Runners here to talk about running every single square on a custom OS map. That's 400 squares in total around his local stomping ground in Devon. So it's great to have you here on the show, Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. I have a confession. I didn't quite make it to all of the squares, but we'll find out why as we go through.
Awesome. Okay, well, just to have the challenge and the notion to do it is a very admirable thing. So I can't wait to hear more about that later. I believe some of them were in the sea, which you're fully excused for. Yeah, I've got tons of questions about your OS map extravaganza, especially from super patron Alex Knight, who says, hello from South Devon. She's watching live now. Hello to you, Alex. This is going to be a great one for her. Because she wants to do exactly what you've done, Martin. First, we've got to do a quick shout out to NAC Sports Nutrition, sponsors of the broadcast and the podcast. So I came back from a workout this morning and I just nailed these two bars, not these two bars, but bars like this. One has caffeine in, which is why I'm talking so incredibly fast right now. And the other one has peanut butter and chocolate in, and they're just totally delicious. So if you want to use their chocolate and maple syrup gels, all their drinks powders, their energy powders, their recovery powders, and they also do little pureed food in pouches, then use my code Wild Ginger Running for 15% off at uk.nac.com, and that offer's going to end on 31st of December. So what could be better than getting a few in for Christmas? Okay, so yes, I've got loads of questions from Alex, but I think first of all we just need to set the scene a little bit. What gave you the idea to do 400 OS map grid squares? Because I know it has been sort of done by a couple of people before, hasn't it? Like you got your idea from someone in particular.
Yes, absolutely. So they all started in October last year, 2023. And I was on social media, and Alistair Humphreys was publicising his to-be-published book. It hadn't come out yet. It came out in January of this year. So Alistair Humphreys is he's an explorer, and he's written lots of books about his explorations globally. But he was starting to promote through social media his new book, which was exploring a bespoke Ordnance Survey 1 in 25,000 map. And there was something about that just piqued my interest. Now, what he did, and he explores in his book, each month, he selected one square at random. So, as you explained, a 1 in 25,000 OS map is 20 kilometres by 20 kilometres. So you get your 400 squares. He selected one square at random. And in each chapter of his book, he describes what he finds in that square. So it's a local adventure.
Yeah, and the book was called Local. Sorry to interrupt there. It's just that the people who are listening on the podcast won't be able to see that you're holding the book up, and it's called Local by Alistair Humphreys.
Well, absolutely, Local by Alistair Humphreys. And his is a very mindful approach. He explored the 1 kilometre square and wrote about. He researched the history, the people, the culture, the wildlife. Brilliant book. And that inspired me, and I thought, well, I really like the idea of, I'm a runner, I'm fascinated by wildlife, most of what I do is local. I thought, I just love that idea. So I then bought myself a OS map. So you can just go onto the OS website, you can put in your postcode, and lo and behold, there's a map. For those of you who are on the podcast and can't see, I've got the map behind me. I've stuck it up on the wall behind me. So for those of you who are watching live can see it. There's my OS map. And because I'm that geeky, I also then bought a folded version as well towards the end, because I just wanted yet another memento of my adventure. So I bought the map, but I still wasn't sure what I was going to do with the map. I didn't want to visit one square at a time because that didn't really appeal to my running nature. And my first idea was to run through every single footpath.
That sounds good.
Well, it was. Then I looked at my map. There aren't that many footpaths. Okay, I live in Devon. I live just outside of Exeter in a town called Topsham. There aren't that many footpaths, and I've actually, rather sadly, I went through my map midway through last year and counted each square. There's only four out of the 400 squares. There's only 240 with footpaths. So that wasn't going to do. So I scrapped that plan, although I have now come back to it. And so I said, well, the easiest thing to do is why not go through all of the 400 squares? So rather than Alistair's, he did 13 squares. I thought, well, why not just do 400?
Why not? 13 to 400 sounds perfectly normal.
Now, I'm a member of a community called the Green Runners, and we're all about. We're
just looking for my patch on my desk.
Right. We're all about thinking about how we can run green for the future. So we have pillars, and one of our pillars is how we move, which is all about thinking about how we can reduce the carbon emissions through transport that we might take through running. So I took my idea of 400 squares and said, okay, I'm going to run through each 400 squares, starting and ending from my front door.
Yeah.
On foot. No public transport, no cars.
Yeah.
That gets a bit more challenging because, as you can quickly sort of begin to understand, the furthest corner is going to be a fair old slog to run there and back.
Yeah, that's a long way away.
It's a long way away. So that's what I set out to do, run through the 400 squares on foot from my front door, no public transport, no cars.
Wow, so those were your rules then?
Yeah, my rules, which I did bend, but we'll perhaps come back to that. So there's a little bit of bending required.
Yeah.
And I set out to start that on the 1st of January this year.
Ah, fantastic. You've done really well to complete that, like just before the year's even ended, because I know you've completed it a while ago and you've written several articles. There's a lovely one on the OS Maps itself website that I read, and I just thought this is fantastic. Yeah, did you not find it that difficult then?
No, it was. Well, it starts out really easy. So 1st of January, get up, leave the house. There's a square. I've done a square, so it starts
several. Yeah, it starts out really easy. But then I suppose it gets a bit Tetrisy as you go that way, and then you're like, how do I go that way and that way? And like, did you sit down and have a big planning session about it then? How did you devise where you were going to go?
Yeah, so I am a mathematician by training. So what I should have done is at the start planned it all out to find the most efficient route around the map. I didn't do that. I just basically went out and started running around my favourite routes. I then quickly realised you did need to start to do some planning. So one of the planning was I looked at the map and worked out quite quickly there were 5 squares I was not going to be able to run through because 2 are in the middle of the Exe estuary.
Okay, fair enough.
And whilst the Exe estuary is quite narrow, those 2 squares I just could not get into by footpath. And there were 3 down in the southeast corner out to sea in the English Channel. And I don't like swimming.
Oh, that's a shame.
I know you do, but I don't like swimming, so I cut those out. So my target was then 395. I then further looked at the map, and I also worked out, because it's quite rural in parts, there were looked at to be at least 3 squares where there was no public access at all, no roads, no footpaths, no tracks. Mm-hmm. So I put those to one side to worry about later. But the planning then, so I started out in January as quite straightforward, run from home. But then as the planning evolved, it was about trying to find efficient loops from home, which then most runners would take fairly efficient, sensible looking routes. My routes began to look very silly because I would do lots of dog legs. I would go down a lane, hit the square, come back up the lane, go on. So there's lots of weird and wonderful routes. And I would then plan the routes at home using a mapping device. I use Outdoor Active, and I would tweak it to try and get, okay, how many squares can I go through on a particular run? Planning didn't always work. I would do these loops, and there was one occasion when I did a lovely loop, came home, I plotted, I would perhaps talk about that another time, but I did plot the squares, and I realised there was one square on its own I hadn't been through.
Oh no! And you'd got back and showered and everything.
Oh yeah. So
oh no!
couple of weeks later, I went back there, and it was a 20k run, basically to run to a co-op.
Oh.
So I could go through this square.
Oh no. Oh no, I bet you were really annoyed about that one.
Yeah, but there was a few occasions when my planning was not as good as it could have been. So, but yeah, I do spend a lot of time looking at my map, trying to work out where to go, and how to get in to those various different squares.
Yeah. And it's really cool that it's local as well. It's like a local challenge that anyone can like transpose to any part of the region. So, because Alex, who's got those questions, she's watching live, she says, I'm a green runner too, and the challenge of starting and ending from my front door was what really interested me. And she's got several questions. So maybe we should answer some of her questions now, just so we make sure that we get them in. She wants to know, how far did you run in total? Have you kept a log of it? As a mathematician, surely you have a spreadsheet.
Well, as a runner who likes stats, so yeah, okay. So I have finished. So to cut to the answer, and then we'll explain how we got it. I've actually been through 399 of the 400 squares.
Oh, okay. We'll pick that up in a mo once we've done some stats.
Pick that up. But how far? So it took me 1,070 kilometres in total.
What's that in real money? I can't really process 1,700.
That's very real money.
I'm so old though. I'm like miles, or I can't feel it in my bones, you know, like anything beyond 10k and I'm like, what is that? It's like so that's about 1,000 miles pretty much.
Yeah, not quite,
I'm
but yeah,
rubbish at maths, just putting it out there.
We'll yeah, about 800 miles, so 1,070 kilometres.
So a fair lick.
That's 41 runs. That was spread over 41. So some of those were getting quite long. I think my longest run was 55k.
55k. Oh, that's quite long, isn't it? How many squares did you tick off for that one?
I think that might have been about 25, 30 squares.
Oh, that was worth it then. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, because again, not good planning. Those very long runs were to the corners.
Yeah.
But to get to the corners, I had to cross a lot of countryside that I'd already been to before. Because again, I wasn't planning it that meticulously. So yeah, and once you're at the corner, then you want to make a lot of effort to do a lot of wiggling around.
Yeah.
Jumping into some big forestry commission woodland and going up and down as many tracks as possible and crawling through hedges and whatever might be needed.
Did you have to trespass much to get it done? We're all trespass sympathisers here. I regularly accidentally trespass through all areas locally. So don't look at my Strava and follow my routes, people.
Indeed. So there are, as I said, there were 3 squares where I knew I was going to have problems because there's no public access. So the way that I solved those was to use satellite maps.
Yeah.
So I abandoned my OS map and then went to satellite imagery to try and work out how I might be able to access the countryside. Now, in one instance, I found there was a new housing estate, and it looked to be a park. I thought, oh, that looks. Just looking at the satellite imagery, I could see hedges, and I could see paths through the fields. I thought, oh, yeah, it looks like there's not official public access, but that will do. So that was fine there, no trespassing really. But there were a few instances I needed to run up a lane. I went through the churchyard, respectfully walking at this point. And I could see if I went through the hedge and part way through to the field, I'd be fine. What I didn't realise was it was a very big ditch.
Oh, no, like after the hedge.
Yeah. But it's a very thick hedge with a very big ditch in. So that took a bit of wiggling and crawling to get through into the field, run through the field. How do I know? Because, of course, when you look at your OS map, it's quite straightforward. It's all crossed by these very fine red lines. Now, of course, those red lines don't exist in real life. So there I am in the middle of a field.
I'd be so much better at navigating if they're blue on my maps. I thought they were blue. Mine are blue. I've got a map behind me and they're blue.
Oh, they are blue. They're red on my. That's because they're red on my phone.
Oh, so
what I do was I've got the map on my phone, and I very carefully watch my little dot move across until I've crossed into the square, and they can move out again.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody was watching me, they'd be going, "Why is this person sort of running across this field, looking at his phone, getting to a point, taking a photograph to prove I was there, and then turning around again?"
Wow.
It's just a field.
That does lead us on really nicely to the next question from Alex, which is how did you keep track of which squares you took each photo in?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it. I didn't want, so the first challenge was how do I actually keep track of which squares I've been through?
Yeah.
I thought about writing on the map. That appalls me. I thought about getting some perspex on top of the map, but ultimately I just used a Word document and created a 20 by 20 grid, and then just coloured that in. And
did you put the photos in there? Like, because you can put photos in there,
no,
can't you?
I haven't done. So what you can see example if you go onto my Instagram account, you can see examples of the maps. But what I did was every run that I went on, I coloured in the squares with the same colour.
Okay.
So my little 20 by 20 grid then becomes a colourful mosaic.
Oh, that's fantastic. But with
got a
41 runs, you've got to have 41 different colours.
Precisely.
Ah, so you used like every shade going in.
Every
You went
shade,
to
I
home
think.
base and you were like, right, all the different shades. What can I use now? Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah, got a bit challenged towards the end. So yeah, I coloured in my grid with it. So that's how I measured that. But then I took copies of my grid. So I did ultimately take a square photograph in every square that I went to.
Yeah.
Had to be square. But I didn't start doing that because in January I just went out for a run and then got home and worked out where I'd been. Took some photographs, but then I went, no, it'd been really nice to record every square. So I then did have to create another grid and then again just mark off which ones I'd taken photographs of. So I do have a lot of square photographs, and again, on Instagram, you'll see lots of my square images with the grid reference. So I've got a bit of history in terms of where I've been.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Like when I was looking at the blog on the OS Maps website, it just looks really pretty, and you've clearly selected a really nice photo from each one, or a really varied photo. Like I'm sure you've photographed like a post box or a tree or or a green field or things like that. And it seems to be like maybe you took a few in the day and you just thought this is the best one from that square, maybe.
Well, what I tried to do is try and find if I was out for a long run, I would not try and do the same type of photograph. I didn't want to keep taking a photograph of a path, so I was trying to find something different. And some squares are a bit boring, and I'll be going through, oh no, I'm about to leave. I still haven't found anything interesting yet to photograph. So, but what it did was it made me look at things in a different way. I was trying to find things of interest photographically whilst running, which is sometimes a bit of a challenge because the brain I'm sure you find I get to the point where I'm not actually thinking while I'm running.
Yeah,
and I haven't actually found anything yet. But yeah, it made me think and look in different ways. And again, for those who are watching, those are the squares photographs that I then had put on the copy of my map.
That's really cool the way you can customise the front of the OS map. So you've got not only a customised OS map all around, like with your house in the middle, but also a customised front to the map. That's really a really nice memento. Yeah, and Alex, moving on from like the interest of those photos, Alex wants to know what was the most interesting square and what was the most challenging square. So that might help us, the challenging one might help us understand why you're on square number 399 and not 400. But let's go for the interesting square. Like, because I'm sure you said on the podcast that I was listening to you with the lovely Trevor before this one, you said you'd been living in the area for 54 years, but there were still surprises with the map. So yeah, maybe one of the squares was interesting because it was surprising.
Yeah, there's loads of surprising squares. So one of the surprising squares was I just decided to, as ever, run from home. It was in the spring, so it's lovely light evening. I just ran from home. I thought I'm going to go up towards the northwest. There's some hills up there. I sort of know the lanes. I went up, ran around the lanes. And at this point, I was now on a challenge within a challenge. Because what I worked out was actually my weekly runs were starting to lose interest because I'd got all the local squares. So I decided to run to all the trig points, as you do.
Yeah.
And there's a trig point in out to the northwest, and I thought, after work, I'm going to run out to the trig point and run home. So I ran out to the trig point. Lanes I'd never been on before as I got further from home. Got to the top of the hill, did a bit of the trespassing that we were talking about earlier, ran across the field, took a picture of the trig point, ran home. Now, what was nice about the run was I found new ways to get out of my local area. So paths and lanes I hadn't taken before, I can now incorporate in future runs. So that's great. It gives me more variety. But also it took me to a part of my local area I'd never been to before. But actually, that's not what was interesting. What was interesting was what happened the next morning. I woke up, I went to my bedroom curtains, and I opened my curtains, and I looked out at my view, and I went, that hill upriver that I can see, I've never thought about that hill before. That hill looks incredibly familiar. Because I'm a bird watcher, I've got a telescope. I went and got my telescope, and I put my telescope on that hill, and then looking through the trees, I could see the trig point.
Ah, you should write some chalk messages to yourself on it.
Yeah, so what was fascinating was I've lived in this house for over 20 years. I've always seen that hill. I've never been able to put a name to that hill. I've never known how to get to that hill. If someone said to me, how do you get there? I'd go, well, I don't know, but now I know how to get there. I also know if you look through, you can see a trig point. So even though I've lived here for 20 years, it's now brought a deeper understanding of where I live, how the landscape is connected.
Yeah.
Because it's connected in so many different ways. And that's what I love about exploring my map, is that connection that I now get in the landscape.
Yeah.
I can place things. I get that hill that I can see. I now know that is close to Longdown, where I sometimes drive. I now know that is actually just between Longdown and that's where it fits.
Yeah.
That's where it fits. And that's what made that square interesting. It wasn't so much the run, but it was that deeper understanding of the landscape that I got from that run.
Yeah.
When I opened the curtains the next day.
Yeah, and every day you can do that now, and you can,
Yeah.
That's a fantastic piece of local knowledge. It's fun. Like, Severine's watching live as well, and she says, this sounds incredibly fun. And you must look a bit silly crawling to the next non-accessible square. It sounds like a good challenge for me. So yeah, everyone's on board with a little bit of trespassing. But yeah, let's keep it on the down low, people. That's really cool. And also, I heard in the podcast with Trevor that you heard 101 different sounds of birdsong, because you're also a birder.
Yes.
What was the best bird that you heard?
Ooh, right. So actually, it's 145 now.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness! It said 101 when I was listening.
Well, yeah, life's moved on. I'm still out there.
Wow.
Although I've actually completed my original challenge, I've now set myself new challenges to do with my map. So I'm actually still actually exploring my map, still listening to and seeing birds. Hence why it's now 145. The biggest discovery I had wasn't actually a single bird that I saw or indeed heard. It was actually about a species of bird, and it's one of Britain's smallest birds. It's called a firecrest.
Okay.
It's tiny. It's tiny. But I've always liked seeing firecrests because they've always been quite hard to see, and there's not been that many. But over the last decade, with global warming, they've started to spread around South Devon. And this year, because I've been going to places I've never been before, and because I've been going to places that most bird watchers wouldn't go, I found them all over the place.
Wow.
So they keep popping up. And
That's amazing.
And I've learnt their song and their call.
Can you sing it for us now?
No, that much I won't do, because it's quite high pitched, and probably my dog will probably run in. But so that's given me a greater awareness of that particular species and how it's spread due to climate change. And I contribute those records through to the British Trust for Ornithology. So I map each record. They've got that, so that builds into their database. But also, I've also used my grid to plot each square. I can't remember what. I'm probably about 25 squares now I found firecrests in.
Oh, wow.
So that's always a pleasure.
Such useful information for them.
Yeah, so it's actually contributes a little bit to science as well as a bit of fun. Gives me some pleasure whilst I'm running around.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Just going to the next question from Alex was, what was the most challenging square? And this might explain why there's 399 squares.
Yeah. So I guess there's two types of challenging. There was one challenging square where there was really no public access, and that which did require finding what looked like to be a very quiet lane through some fields, which wasn't near a farmhouse, where I thought, yeah, I can get in, and that was fine. The really challenging squares were the ones in the estuary and out to sea. And this is where I bent my rules.
Yeah.
And then my rules, so I can do what the hell I like. So whilst I was out one day in town, I stopped by because I realised there was a ferry that runs down the estuary, but also does cruises along the coast. So I had a look at their timetable and went, oh, next weekend they're doing a cruise down the estuary. So I ran to the ferry on that day, went down the estuary, and lo and behold, the ferry went through the two squares. I was tracking it on my phone. Hooray, good job.
Hurrah.
So the next thing to do was to get the three out to sea. And this is where it got harder. And this was my last run. So this is on the 17th of June. So by the 17th of June, I'd already run through all the land-based squares, but I had three out to sea off East Devon. Actually, for those of you who know it, off Budleigh Salterton specifically.
Uh-huh.
Now, this ferry went from Exmouth to Sidmouth and back. So I ran to Exmouth ferry, which took me, I think that was 14 kilometres, close to 10 miles. I forget. Apologies.
Yeah. Can just about do 14k. I can also do 50k. 50k I can do, but nothing in between. 10 and 50k. That's all I can do.
Perfect. Okay, we'll have a problem in a minute then. So I ran down, got the ferry, and I thought, right, okay, this is my last three squares. So I went up to the captain and said, I've got an odd request. This is what I'm doing. Is there any chance you can steer your ferry through my three? He says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll see what I can do. So I made sure I stood outside the cabin of this ferry. I think everybody else was just tourists on the ferry. So off we go. Yeah, go through one square. He said, oh, we're doing all right. So yeah, we're doing fine. Just one square. So it's like, yeah, I've got the next one. And then we hit the problem. So part of the problem was the ferry crosses a live firing range the Marines use. Oh. Unfortunately, the Marines were doing live firing, so he had to stop whilst they ceased firing. Then he could cross, but he had to get across quickly, which meant he couldn't deviate. So unfortunately, I was able to watch Square 400 drift past the boat about 200 metres off the right-hand side. Get to Sidmouth, and I had a chat with the captain. He said, we said, I can't take you through that on the way back because everybody else on the boat wants to go close inshore to see the views, so we're not going to go through it. I said, okay, I'll run home. So I ran home for it's about 35 kilometres run home. So my final run was a run along the southwest coast path and up the estuary, and said, that's it, 399. I shan't get to that last one.
Oh, I need to alter the thumbnail. I need to alter the YouTube thumbnail because I've lied. I've put 400 grid squares. Would you consider chartering like a jet ski or something similar to just get that? Because that would really annoy me, just having one left that's just, it's in the sea, so you don't have to run. And also, were you jogging on the spot on the boat? Because I feel like that's something you might have been doing, jogging around the boat or jogging on the spot just to sort of be running through those squares.
No. There's only so far that I will. For the first one, I was with friends, and there was no way I was going to jog on the spot with friends.
I'd love to jog on the spot with friends. I'd make them do it too.
They wouldn't be jogging. They would just be looking at me and putting a big distance between myself and them. Oh. But no, I didn't do that. No, I'm leaving the last one there, Claire, because
you're just leaving it there. I respect that.
What's the better story? Is the better story the 400, or is the better story the 399? I couldn't get to the last one because the Marines were live firing. I like the latter.
Yeah,
I'll
it's a
go with a
good
better
story.
story.
I'll give you that. The one that got away, I'll give you that.
Precisely.
Oh, okay. So you've done 399 and you're happy with that. But now you're doing something else as well. Like you're not content just to run through all 399 of those squares on your map. You're now tackling the sides of the map. And then you said something earlier about the paths as well. Like you're trying to run every footpath
Yeah.
on the map. This map is going to be exhausted. Don't know
Oh,
about
well,
you.
yeah. The map is getting very thin. So that was it. 17th of June. I had finished that, but I like running locally, so I didn't want to stop there. Now, I did have a bit of a gap over the summer because I was training for a big running event. So I did need to go to find some mountains. So I did a bit of going elsewhere. But when I sort of came back from that, it was like, I want to carry on. So I did that. So I thought, yes, why not go around the edge of the map? Because was using Strava to create a heat map. And again, on Instagram, you'll see examples of the heat maps. So the heat map was looking quite good. And I thought, well, yeah, I like my heat map, but it could do with a border. Wouldn't it be nice to go around the edge of my map? So then on Strava, I've got a nice. But I looked at it and it was because you can't obviously run in a straight line. It was 130 kilometers.
Wow.
Now,
Call it 100 miles.
yeah, I wasn't going to do that in one day or several days in a continuous run, and I was having a few health issues at the time. But I broke it up into chunks. I have now been all the way around the edge.
Wow.
Now, I did change my rules at this point for health reasons. The second half of the year, I've not been able to run 50 odd kilometres, so I was allowing myself to either use public transport or occasionally drive out. But yeah, I've been all the way around the edge. I then would start looking at my heat map and go, yeah, but there's gaps. Because it's all very well running through a square, but you don't do much. Yeah. So now I'm trying to basically fill my heat map up as much as I possibly can by running along and through as many of the roads, the lanes, the footpaths as possible, trying to fill those gaps in. So, yeah. That's where I'm at now, really. I'm going out and looking at my map and going, oh, there's a footpath there I've not been along yet. Let's run out there and run along the footpath. Or, as I did on Monday, it was, oh, there's some quiet lanes I can run through, which will now just fill in another part of my map and take me somewhere else. So I'm still finding new paths. I'm still finding new lanes. I'm finding new woods to explore.
New bird calls.
Yeah, precisely. There's always new things to find, new bits of history,
wow.
People to talk to. There's always there's been lots of adventures, lots of little things that I found along the way.
Incredible. I love that. And I love that you've carried it on and you're really getting your money's worth out of this map. I love that you've taken such a big commitment to running local. And I wanted to talk more to you about that because this is part of one of your pledges with the Green Runners.
Yep.
Can you just explain to us a little bit about, well, what Green Runners is for anybody who has been living in a shoebox for the last 3 years or however long they've been going for now? What is the Green Runners and a little bit more about your commitment to running local?
Okay, thank you. So the Green Runners is a community of runners who've got together to try and make a difference for the planet by being green and really trying to address climate change through whichever way we can. And as Green Runners, it's really just about empowering and encouraging people to take action against the Green Runners pillars. So it's community-led, just trying to inspire and encourage people. And I've made a lot of changes in my life directly as a result, either through diet and travel, etc. But this is directly linked to two things, really. One is it's the How We Move pillar. So the How We Move pillar is about how can we reduce our carbon emissions through travel, and particularly when it comes to running. So what a lot of people don't realise, for example, if you attend a running event, that running event will, as a consequence, there will be carbon emissions associated with the running event. Over 95% of most running events' carbon emissions come from participant travel.
To the event itself. So we think we're doing quite a nice eco-friendly thing in, not like doing sporting Formula 1 or something, but then we're driving to all these events. Presumably not very many of us are car sharing necessarily. because
or
it's really
taking the
hard to
train.
organise. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can't train to most events. Like, I mean, I've looked into it, and it's really hard to get public transport that gets you there on time. Yeah, it's a difficult thing.
It is, isn't it? So, and there are a number of different ways to look at that. That's an interesting topic in itself. There are things that event organisers can do just by subtly shifting the start times. Because quite often we'll find the start times are too early on a Sunday for public transport. But if they shift it by an hour, public transport might kick in. The bigger events are now working more closely with public transport. I think Cardiff Marathon did a lot of work with trying to work with the local authority to make sure that there was public transport laid on, which of course the bigger events are more able to do.
Or a minibus collection from the station and things like that. That's really nice when events do that.
I did a trail run in Bath a few years ago, and they laid on minibuses from the train station to take you to Bath Racecourse and back, which was really good. So there are people out doing the right thing. But anyway, yeah, so essentially by me running locally and by my first challenge, running from the front door, is highlighting that you can go and run and have good adventures, a lot of from your front door. It doesn't need to be, I don't need to be driving around Devon to go and find the great running routes. They are just out there, really, and I just need to go and find them.
Yeah. And so have you got any top tips for anybody thinking of doing this challenge? Because I know Alex is thinking of giving this a go. Is there anything that you think, looking back, oh, I would have done that earlier, or I would have not done that way?
Yeah, top tip is they're your rules. So do what you want. I think everybody, I know quite a few people now are doing something similar, but everybody's doing their own take on it. So don't look at other people's rules and say, oh, that's how I need to go and do it. It's your adventure. You define the rules.
Yeah.
If you want to take public transport, take public transport. It's not a problem. So yeah, just do what you want to do that makes it interesting for you. Yeah, and with rules, don't think that your map has to be centered on your house. Of course it doesn't. Alistair Humphreys didn't center his map on his house. He chose a slightly different area because he realized that would create a more interesting experience, because some of this, if he'd done it on his house, he said it would not have been the same. Likewise, if I was living closer to the coast, my map would be half out to sea.
That would be
no
rubbish.
fun.
Yeah.
Rather than 3 squares, I might have 200 squares. So, be flexible, and just go out and explore. If I was to do it again, and I've been thinking about doing it again, then I would probably start with my longer run. So what I did was, the natural excitement was to go out and hoover up lots of the local squares. But that meant actually that wasn't terribly efficient, because then, as I explained earlier, my long runs had to take me through the local squares I'd already been through. By starting long and planning in those longer runs, I could probably have done it in far fewer than 41 runs and finished probably quite a bit before the 17th of June. So yeah, you can do it more efficiently, but hey, I enjoyed being out there, so I don't mind how long it takes the time. So it wasn't actually an issue for me. And find new things, keep it fresh. So I went out and found trig points. I ran through all the Devon Wildlife Trust reserves. I found the only windmill. I went to the corner and I took a picture of the turf at each corner. I tried to find the exact corner of my map.
Yeah.
The precise corner. Go find all your footpaths. I don't know, churches, pubs. There's loads of stuff that you could go and do, or you don't have to be quite so. I mean, obviously, I like collecting things, don't I? That must be coming across. You don't have to go and collect. Just go and run. Just go and walk.
Yeah.
Just go and explore.
Yeah, you don't have to commit yourself to doing the whole map. You could maybe just do a quarter of it or a half of it or something like that, or something like that. Alex Kay is getting really excited about her challenge now. She says she lives on the coast. She's also in Devon. So she said her map is off-centred to have more land in it.
Precisely.
But that makes the top left-hand corner pretty far away. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if she'll be able to do the running thing. She also wanted to know if you camped out anywhere or stayed with friends to make the far corners a little easier, because I'm supposing, because if hers is really far away, that top left corner, she might have to stay with friends or do some camping.
No, I didn't. My joy from running is actually ultra running, so I'm not phased by a 55-kilometer run for the hell of it on my own.
Yeah.
So for me, no, that wasn't when I've now been post the initial phase. Now I'm in this sort of new exploratory phase. I am using public transport, so I do like I love going out by train and then running back.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm less keen on buses because they're less reliable, but I love going out by train. So Monday's run, when I was exploring I did basically, it was a train to train run. I just went to one station, then ran to another station, which
Cool.
was that's a 20-mile run.
That's super
So
fun.
yeah, I use public transport rather than tents.
Yes. It's just struck me. How are you fitting all this in? Like, do you have a normal person job? Like, what's your responsibilities around family and like children and like elderly parents, anything like that?
Wow. Okay, so I work 4 days a week. So, which I'm very lucky to have been able to arrange. So I have a full-time, apart from it being 4 days a week, I have a desk-based job. I'm doing sort of 8, 9, 10 hours a day. So what am I doing? Essentially, that 1 day a week is my day to do what I want, as long as I'm back. Monday run day.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's my day for doing the long runs, as long as I'm mostly back to pick up my daughter from school bus. That's fine. I have that day to myself. And then it's trying to fit things in before work. And I work from home, which again gives me more time, so I can run before work and I can run up after work. That's how I typically fit it in. And I'm lucky. So Catherine, my wife, she likes to exercise, and she has her own interests. So we just find balance in terms of what we do.
Nice. So it works well, because I'm just thinking, gosh, how would I fit that in with a 3-year-old? But I think maybe if you've got an older kid that's at school and getting a bus, then it might be a bit easier, and they don't want to stick themselves to you like a limpet the moment you pick them up for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, that would be harder. Yes, I'm lucky to have the time that I do to be able to do what I want to do in this way. So,
yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, well, you are lucky, but you're making the most of your luck, and also you're using this luck to promote the Green Runners, aren't you? Because you've written several articles about this now, and it's appeared on lots of nice platforms, and you're sort of helping encourage people to donate to the Green Runners crowdfunding, aren't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is it still ongoing, the crowdfunder for Green Runners?
So the crowdfunder has actually finished, but it's I think formally, but it's still open for contributions. So the Green Runners are raising money because to date we've been volunteer led, and I think as we all find as volunteers, there's only so much time in the day through work and running and then volunteering, and we want to be able to do more. So we're doing some great work with English athletics, for example, working with local clubs. We wanted to be able to do more of that because we can see that's making a difference to those local clubs. So we want to use the crowdfund is to employ some people on a part-time basis, just to give us a solid footing to be able to do more in that area, to do more work with race directors, to have those conversations about how we can put on environmentally friendly events and all of that good work, as well as doing the work in terms of publicising the need and help people take individual actions. Helping people like myself understand what options there are to do things differently. And just sort of create that community voice and feeling. And I love being part of it because it has genuinely, I've made differences because I know there are other people doing the same thing. And if I was just me on my own, I probably wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and because before I joined the Green Runners, I was kind of getting to the point where I was just like, why does it matter? I am doing the best I can, but does it really matter if I go in the car to collect Finley from nursery? And then now that you're with, like you said, when you've joined the community of all these other people and you make your pledges, it means that in the dark and the rain and the cold, I will still get on my bike and cycle that mile to nursery and back, 2 miles nursery and back with Finley, and just put waterproof trousers on because I've made a pledge and I feel like I'm doing my little bit amongst a big massive voice for the planet. So I think I really encourage everybody to join Green Runners. It's not like a big scary cult where you have to do this and you have to do that.
No.
You choose your own pledges. What is it? The way you move, the way you kit up, the way you speak out, and what's
fuel,
and the way
eat.
that you fuel, yeah, so the way that you eat. So there's those 4 kind of pillars that they use, and you just can choose, like, is it one, you can just do one of them, or choose a pillar for each thing. You can do one for each pillar, a pledge for each pillar.
People can do what like. So we're all starting from different places, so there's no judgment. So you start from where you are today, and you can choose to pledge across 1 pillar, 2, 3, or 4. I mean, personally, I've pledged across the 4 because that makes me think about what I'm doing. But yeah, no, it's the pledges are individual. We're just going through a website refresh, which hopefully got to go live in the new year, and that will provide more resources for people to help them understand how they can make pledges. Because one of the things we found is people find, and I find this a bit of an alien concept now, but people find making pledges difficult because they think they have to be meaningful. But hopefully by sharing examples of other people's pledges and giving ideas for resources, people can go, actually, it's those small the small steps don't have to be scary.
Yeah. And you can also pledge stuff you can always pledge stuff you're already doing as well. It doesn't have to be a new thing. It can just be a continuation of your old thing and just a commitment to that. I think that's what came across to me when I was doing mine, was I was like writing stuff down and going, hang on a minute, I already mainly do this, but this has just cemented the fact that I will try to always do this, you know. So yeah, it was mainly stuff I was already doing, but just a bigger commitment to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by making those pledges and talking about the pledges, some of that actually helps one of the pillars, which is how we speak out, and that's actually talking about it. And why is that important? It's because it normalizes the conversation.
Yeah.
So to your point, why does it make a difference, me driving? Well, it doesn't actually. If you need to drive, that's absolutely fine. But having a conversation about, I don't know, running locally normalizes it, so people don't feel that they are anomaly. They makes them realize that other people are doing that, and therefore actually collectively we start to make a difference, and that will also then start to influence the market. So hopefully we'll then start to see changes in how people are delivering races, how people are supplying the kit, making our kit more sustainable. So all of that normalization does make a difference, at the same time as well as sort of campaigning against sort of more political initiatives and the bigger stuff. So yeah, it's all helps.
Yeah, it is. It does all help. And because of being in the Green Runners, I then went to my first march, the March for Water, back in November.
Oh, yes.
It was really good. I've never been to a march like that before. As I get older and older, I've always been, very interested in conservation, thought it was really important, but I've found the time myself now to like go to more of these things and put it forefront of my agenda now. So I'm really pleased about that, and it's just nice to be involved with Green Runners, because I know that I'm like, there's all these people. I feel like I'm like buoyed on a wave of people backing me to go to things like that. And it was a really enjoyable march, and we came away from it. I just went with a group of wild swimmers that I usually hang out with, and yeah, we just came away with like an uplifted positivity, that the fact that there were all these people gathered that felt the same way, but then a bit depressed because like so many people feel the same way, yet still stuff's not being done. So like it's like, but yeah, I feel very strongly that the Green Runners is brilliant. I was actually a bit scared to join the Green Runners, just because obviously I follow Damien on social media, and every time he takes one flight in a whole year anywhere, he gets loads of people going, you're a Green Runner, blah 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 blah. And it's kind of like this impression that if you join the Green Runners or do speak out about green issues in any way, you've got to be perfect yourself. And I think that's something that everybody needs to understand, really, that, like Damien says in his book, We Can't Run Away From This, you can either be a climate hypocrite, which we all are, just by dint of being here, existing, or you can be a climate arsehole. And the worst arseholes are people who hate on other people who are trying to make a difference. I think it's just really not helpful. Like, they might have the same views, like we might be in the same gang, but they're still going, me, but you took a flight. And it's like, we're not going to stop living our lives, are we?
Precisely that, and no, Damien's book is a brilliant book to read, and that for me was a great source of inspiration for what I've done on my journey through this, and those conversations I've had with Damien about my choices about what I eat, for example. So I have fundamentally changed what I eat and what I drink as a consequence of being a green runner. But that's my own personal journey, and different people take different things from it. So yeah, no, it's shouldn't be scary. It is friendly. It's about empowering, and it's about community, and it's about individuals, helping individuals think about what they want to do. So we are, if people are interested, you can find us on the main social media channels. You can find the Green Runners on Instagram. We're very active. I personally manage the Blue Sky account and the Threads account. You won't find us on Twitter. We have come off that, and we do have a presence on Facebook for members, so you can find us in the usual places.
Awesome. Oh, that's brilliant, Martin. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and telling us all about your OS Map Challenge, and also for filling us in on the Green Runners and being really encouraging and inspiring around joining that amazing community of like-minded, ecologically aware runners. We really appreciate your time today. Just before we go, I just do have to do a tiny shout out to NAC Sports Nutrition. It's the last chance, 31st of December, get 15% off using the code WildGingerRunning, and then next year it's at uk.nac.com, and next year that won't be available. So if you want any lovely snacks for your winter running, then definitely check them out. So thank you so much, Martin. It's been fab talking to you today, and I hope this episode inspires lots of trail and ultra runners to run local.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Bye, everyone. Oh, sorry. Alex says, this was fascinating. Thank you so much, Martin. Can't wait to start my adventure on January the 1st. Well, there you go.
Brilliant. Have fun, Alex. Have fun.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.